This is Pusha Wheats Catan. If you know, you know, coming at you with Game 7 of the Name the Kid 1v1 challenge. If you're just joining, the format for this is we are playing 1v1 colonist.io. We have to get a 75% win rate on our 10-minute matches, and if we achieve that, we get to name my friend's firstborn kid, Gurias. So, we missed game 6. I actually lost the footage for that when I was transferring hard drives, but that one was a win. So we got back from our 60% win rate to 66. Basically, we need to be perfect from here on out for us to win the challenge. So it's going to be an uphill battle. Over the long run, top players are usually posting high 50s or low 60s for their win rate, so this is going to be an exceptional challenge, but let's see if we can pull it off. So we are placing second here on the board. Scrabble Nerd is first up, and a little friendly banter here in the chat as they make their first decision. They placed on the 6, 5, 10. I like this because you are getting the strong wheat and the strong ore. There's only really one strong sheep spot left though, so I don't love their decision to not point up towards that 9. I feel like that would have been a really powerful play from them because I'm not placing on that 9-10 ever in 1v1. I've got a tough decision here trying to figure out where to go, and I know that I am going to want to get in on some of that strong wheat and strong ore myself, as well as getting those good road building materials. So I take the 5-8-3 placing here, but a little indecision on which way to put the road. I'm thinking about that sheep port or ore port, but those resources are valuable, and by pointing in the middle here, I get access either to doubling up on that ore or pointing to that 6-4-3. Then my second placement is on this 5, 9, 10, and once again point inside. I'm looking at that 8, 10, 3. That will give me really strong wheat and even more sheep, so I really like pointing up towards there to get that, but I forgot where I was and the opponent did not. They got that auto road right away with the 3, 11, 9. So now, because they're first and there's a friendly robber on, there's no way that they're not cutting me off to one of the best remaining spots on the board. Doubling up their sheep, having all of the strong wheat on the board. There's a huge advantage that this player is going to have as the game gets started. So I'm sweating here. In a game that's a must win, this is a bad situation, but let's see how it goes. So we see this coming from a mile away. First roll, I get plowed. There's a friendly robber. It is automatic, but I do get some help right away by getting the 5 out there. I am most of the way to now getting a city, and my only hope here is that my production can somehow outpace my opponent as they get a huge advantage from their original positioning. One of the silver linings that is going to be happening here is that I get to build towards that 4-6-3, which is still a good spot given how rare sheep is, and that my road building materials with the 6, 8, 4, and 9 are going to be really, really strong. So I'll be agile on this board, and luckily I get to my city right away. I choose to put this on the 5, 9, 10. Usually I do it on my strongest production spot, which should be the 5-8-3, but in this case, wheat is the rarest resource for me, and I'm not going to be getting that 8-10-3 that I was banking on, so I have to put it there. And luckily, that pays off right away as I get another city on my highest production spot. So while the opponent does have a great advantage here in terms of their overall position on the board, I have them blocked first, and I have 2 cities already on the board, so quadrupling my production right out the gate. This is making me feel a lot more optimistic, and another lucky 7 helps to block their wheat. This is huge, and this is a strategy that I typically take on one-on-ones. Is if there is a resource that is essential for city building or for placing settlements and there's only one spot that they can get that from, I will block that resource, even if it's less probability. The reason being, they are unable without a knight to move it off of there. And so besides a 7 happening, they're going to have to go 4 for 1 without a port to produce that resource. So wheat is always a high value resource. And so this being the 6 wheat is a really easy decision, but also having this 10 block tier is a great way to slow the opponent down as an alternate option, because they're on the 11 wood as the only other alternate there. So I am really frustrating my opponent right now by, in some ways, getting lucky with the 7s that I've gotten. But in other ways, my initial strategy is working well here in getting really strong road building resources. And even though I got plowed, I got to go all the way around the outside and somehow still make it to that 8-10 wheat. So against all odds, I end up being able to settle there. And even better, I get that 3 for 1 port, which is not something that I was counting on when I had originally laid out my strategy. I only thought that that ore port was going to be available to me, and now this makes it even easier for me to settle on that. So now I have 2 cities on ore where I'm getting a 2 for 1 port. I got to the 3 for 1 port. I'm going to city up here and be able to have really strong wheat, strong sheep. And now that I'm feeling really settled in to the board position that I want, the production that I want, I am starting to be able to buy development cards. And this is going to be a key differentiator in the game, is having that control over the opponent and being able to use those development cards to continue to block that wheat. My opponent is not through yet though, as they are building towards that wheat port, and they're still going to get that free settle spot on the 843, which they end up placing there. That is going to give them a really strong port as well. But just getting started here, it's still good to block that unshared 6 wheat, and I get another lucky 7, which Scrabble Nerd in the chat is continuing to be frustrated by. I mean, sometimes the dice does roll your way and make things easier. You're getting some free blocks here, which is really going to slow the opponent down. And in addition to that, I am just building more and more resources towards development cards. I get a year of plenty in addition to the knights there, which is going to be helpful for being flexible and being able to do things like buy more development cards or build out my road. I really love Year of Plenties in 1v1 just because they can sometimes be a big difference maker in getting ahead. So nobody has taken longest road yet, but I do have largest army in hand, which is a great feeling. And just knowing that that's going to be pretty much automatic, number one, allows me to control the pace of play, but number two is going to allow me to focus on building out my road and taking that as well. You can see my opponent has not bought a single dev card, and this is something that is a death knell that keeps coming up in 1v1. If you find your opponent or even yourself not buying any development cards at this stage in the game, when it's 10-7 on the board, it's going to be really difficult, if not impossible, to win a 1v1 game where you have to get 15 points without doing that. So the opponent is doing what they can to stick with me and keep pace, but I am just continuing to buy development cards, and I am really in the driver's seat here for being able to continue to hold on to road, continue to build cities here. I'm going to put my 4th one down, which means that I'm at maximum production with my port, and this has really just been a fantastic game. I mean, it helps too that Monopoly comes down, so I use my knight there just to get largest army because you can only use 1 development card per turn, and I want to be able to use that Monopoly to my advantage. So the opponent does end up connecting for longest road, and we have to build a full 5 in order to get there. Also to make sure that I have my end game, I'm going to need to settle and then maybe get a victory point, because even with longest road and a settle, I'm still 1 point away from winning and I can't build any more cities. So might need just a little bit of luck here to get this through, or I'll need to settle twice. And I do have 2 free and clear settle spots on this 5-2 and the 6-2 on the 3-1 port. So there's plenty of outs for me to be able to get this. And with 4 knights to my opponent's 0, it is really not going to be something that they're able to catch up to get those 2 points back. So my opponent has written in the chat that this is BS. And honestly, I don't blame them. I think that a lot of this was luck with those early rolls and the 7s that I got. So it's just something that comes up in one-on-one from time to time. And this is why this format is so hard for you to be completely dominant and have a 75% win rate, because when you get unlucky runs like that, and I got 2 cities before my opponent was able to settle and beat them on that race to the 8 wheat spot, that made a huge difference in the game. And when I drop this monopoly here and take away that ore from my opponent, they just throw GG's in the chat and they resign. So I didn't end up having to get to my end game with settling there, but you could see my production just absolutely dunked on this opponent. 120 resources to their 78, and I attribute a lot of that to the early cities. So we're bringing home the W. We're at a 71% win rate with 3 games remaining. We do need to be perfect to pull this out, but all of those graphics are green because we are right there. Game 7, 5 out of 7 wins. We are so close to bringing this home. So tune in for the next game. I'll be posting here shortly.